Hello and welcome to today's talk. We're going to be covering online meetings. Yes, online meetings because since COVID, certainly since COVID, we've all been doing a lot more online meetings, haven't we? I was doing them long before because many of my clients were overseas. Maybe I was doing webinars, but now since COVID, since all the lockdowns, since all these new precautions came in, there are so many online meetings. And actually, I've got to be honest, I like them. I really do. I mean, I used to travel across my city for an hour meeting. And it's not just the hour, you got the preparation for the meeting, getting ready, travelling there, getting there, travelling back. It's crazy when you think about it because now I can just jump on Zoom, have the meeting, and then it's done. But here's the thing, so often when I'm in these meetings, whether talking to my clients, whether talking to prospective clients, whether doing mentoring and training, the same common mistakes are still being made. So I thought it'd be wonderful if we could cover these together so that maybe you could consider what you're doing when you're having an online meeting to ensure your success. Because how we come over in an online meeting, how we're presenting ourselves, all makes such a difference. Because remember, people are judging us, aren't they? They're looking at us. They're trying to think, is Andy going to cover what's going to be interesting for me? So it's so important for us to be able to deliver a presentation in a way that's engaging, be seen, as you'll see as we go through these steps today, and also deliver the content in a way that people are able to understand it. So that is what we are going to do today. Yes, we are going to look at how we can present ourselves live. We're going to cover 10 steps for successful online presentations. Now, that could be presenting formally, maybe you're just doing an update, whatever that is for you. So let's get straight into these 10 steps. The first one is one that hopefully everybody appreciates. You need to do preparation. We all need to prepare. Like at anything, be it online, be it in person, we need to prepare for our presentations. But when it's online, it's slightly different. And I've got two thoughts I'd love to share with you just simply on the preparation. So if we were given a presentation in person, we might hold notes. We might have cards, is what I always suggest. Cards, as in little bits in the palm of your hand that you can just refer to if you feel that you need to look at them, like a safety blanket. Maybe you worry about forgetting your words when you're speaking in person, and that's okay, right? You can have those. But when it comes to online, you really don't want to have a script in front of you. Now, what I often see people doing is constantly looking away, looking down the side to where their notes are. And again, that's distracting, it breaks the connection with the audience. Maybe they actually have a full script on their screen. And again, they're now reading it. And I can tell you, we all know when somebody's reading to us, right? The written, spoken English, it's so different. There's no connection. We know when people are saying words, they're not coming from their heart, they're just coming from the screen. So what I would always suggest is, if it's an online meeting, have some notes. Absolutely fine to have notes. Keywords, few phrases, but have them on your screen. You can have them in a Word document, for example, on the screen. Have them low in the top third. Because if you reduce the document, your Word document up, so it's just in the top third, actually then it's just below the webcam. So you can see the notes, but you're still looking at the webcam. It doesn't matter if it obscures the faces of some of the people who are looking at you during this time, unless you're actually asking people to interact with you, like raise your hand or get engaged. Have a few there. Now, I have a MacBook. Now, on the MacBook, and I think you might be able to do on Windows now, you can switch between desktops. So maybe you can have Zoom maximized and the Word document on another screen. So just flick back and forth. If you've got different monitors, you can have maybe a monitor above you with some notes. But the key thing is, they're keywords. They're little notes that you can look at whilst you're still making contact with the webcam. And this is really going to help you to come across as natural. It's going to help you to come across, somebody who's connected and talking to your audience. So that really is my first tip. First of all, this is still on preparation, but my first tip on preparation is little notes in the top third of your screen. Now, the second thing to consider, and this is part of your preparation when you're giving a presentation online, is look at the slides. See how they display. Because the way they display on, say, a projector in an in-person room might be different when it's online. And I found this out to my cost when I was doing a webinar, because what happened was the video of me covered part of the slide. So look at, and every platform's different. Every platform's different. So look at how your slides display when you're giving the meeting. Make sure the audience can clearly see the slide and any data that you're showing, any information. And again, we don't want to have our slides full of facts and figures. A good image, a little bit of text is all we want. When we're presenting online, far more so than when we're doing in person, our audience are going to be distracted. They might be looking at the screen, but the chances are they could be reading an email, they could be doing some other work, they could even be browsing Facebook. I don't know. They will be distracted. So you want to keep them focused on you, on your message, which is why you want to have these keywords so you can really talk from the heart rather than just be reading a Word document to them. And you want to have the slides which are engaging and easily visible to them as well. This step, this preparation, thinking about the slides, thinking about how you're going to deliver the notes, along with the other tips we're going to cover, are really going to help you to have an amazing online presentation. So the second step is to look at the tech itself, right? Tech is so important. Obviously, it's an online meeting, right? So you've got to have good tech. So first of all, one thing you'd like, I always do this. I often say to people, check the tech, and then they kind of want to check it a couple of minutes beforehand. Literally, I host meetings, right? So one of the things I do twice a week is host a group of trainees, mentees, come along to develop their practice, their public speaking. And I often say, if they're giving a presentation, look, I'm online half an hour early, come and check everything. And they will turn up sometimes 2 minutes before we're due to start. That is not checking the tech. Half an hour beforehand? Yeah, not 2 minutes. You could check in advance that the slides display. Make sure you know how to share your screen, how to share your slides. Do you know how to use the poll feature, the chat feature, whatever it is for you? Check it in advance. If you're using Zoom, which is where I live these days, one of the things you can do, even if you don't have a paid account, you can do a meeting to yourself. So you can start an online meeting, check how it all works, play around with the settings, kind of get to feel comfortable with it. And one of the advantages of doing that, as you feel comfortable with all the tech, you know it works, before the meeting, it builds your confidence. And that's what we want, isn't it? We want to have that confidence because we can often feel a bit anxious, a bit nervous before the meeting. But if we believe in ourselves, we have that inner belief, we start feeling more confident, and that is where we will have more success as well. So check all the tech. Now, a couple of things to be aware of is that during a webinar or Zoom meeting, whatever it is you're doing for the training, the presentation, whatever it is, it's not the time to have people downloading heavy files, to be watching films online. So if you're on your own, make sure you're not doing any downloading updates. Family members, friends, whoever you're with, just let them know you're doing a meeting. So it could be the time that maybe you ask them not to be streaming or downloading whilst you're doing this presentation as well. You've got the slides, but it's also a good idea, what I always do, because whenever I'm presenting, I always like to have backups, and sometimes backups are the backup as well. So you've got your slides you might be sharing, but have a PDF available that actually you could share with people if for some reason something happens, your slides don't display. So you can just share a PDF. You can either share it on by a link, you can maybe post it, depending again on that different software that you have. But having a PDF of your slides, you just do file export and save it as a PDF. It's another way of having the information available, which is what we always want as well. But do clearly practice it. Check the tech way in advance of the meeting, but certainly check the tech on the day in advance, half an hour before the actual go live, so you know that it works. Always check. It's just a big thing that takes so much anxiety away, checking that in advance. That was our second step. Now the third step, the third thing to think about on the day of your presentation. Be aware of your location. When I sit on meetings, I've got to be honest, maybe I'm a bit nosy, I don't know, but I can't help but look at what's behind people. When they have a cluttered bookshelf, I sometimes look at the books they've got. Sometimes I look at their furniture, whatever it is that's behind them. For me, it's a distraction, and I'm sure I'm not the only one. So be aware, what have you got behind you? What is it that people could see? I mean, I've seen unmade beds, I've seen piles of laundry, I've seen everything. So be aware of what's behind you and how that can distract your audience. Now, what people sometimes do on Zoom and others is put up a virtual background. Now, virtual backgrounds are great, but they're also not so great. What do I mean by that? Well, if you have a green screen, a proper green screen, and a green screen could just be a green tablecloth, they work brilliantly. But when there's clutter behind you and you just use an inbuilt virtual background, what happens is they start to obscure parts of you. You suddenly raise your hand and that hand disappears, or you move your head and the head disappears. We don't want that, do we? So I would say generally avoid virtual backgrounds if you can. Try and move your desk or your position so you've got a plain wall behind you or an uncluttered background. Look, we all know everybody's living their life in their house, right? We know that, we expect that. But it's just not having a lot of clutter, a lot of distraction, people walking in and out, these kind of things behind us that can distract from your message. That is what we want to try and avoid. Notice that. And I suppose tying in with the location is our next step, is the lighting. Now, we need to see you. We need to see your face. So this would be our fourth step. Ensure there is light on you. Another common mistake I see with online meetings is people have the light coming from behind them. Now, if the light's behind them, for example, a window, what happens is that affects the webcam. So therefore, it's compensating for the bright light. So again, we can't see the person. It just sometimes looks like a silhouette on the camera. So look at how you're positioned. I mean, quite frankly, it's easy to do because you see yourself when you're on the meeting. So again, start it early. How do you look? If you can't see yourself, we're not going to be able to see you, are we? So look at how you're coming across. And also, think about how the lighting will change. For example, does it get darker as the meeting goes on? In which case, the lighting might be okay now. In half an hour, it may not. So you want lighting coming from the front so your face is clearly lit up. Notice where that is. So too often people make the mistake of having it from behind, say a window, whereas what we want is that window in front. So your faces are lit so we can see you, your expressions. That is really what we want as well. So that would be my step 4, ensuring we can see you, your gestures, your expressions, etc. Step 5, consider how you want to dress for the occasion. Just because you walk around in your pyjamas all day, probably not the best thing to do on a Zoom meeting. But also, you don't need to wear a suit. Think about your audience. That is the key. What are your audience going to be wearing? Now, if it's your colleagues, you'll know, right? You'll know what they're going to be wearing. If it's a client, what kind of thing would they be wearing? And dress slightly above. With people often working from home more now, it's more casual. And that's okay. But just be aware of it. And be aware of what you're wearing in the bottom half. I know many people who wear formal top and then maybe they wear underwear or their pyjamas in the bottom half. But if you suddenly stand up, people will see what you're wearing. And again, I've seen that. I saw a guy who was wearing a nice shirt and a jacket, and then he stood up and he was wearing his pyjamas, noticeably his pyjamas underneath. So just be aware of that because it kind of projects that different image. I mean, I've heard of things where people are doing Zoom meetings and they've actually been on webcam. They didn't really realise they're on the webcam still because they just joined the meeting. And they were actually just getting out of the shower. They thought they could just join the Zoom meeting, zip off and finish their shower. There's parts of our body that we don't really want to have on display. So notice exactly what it is that you're wearing, how you're dressing. And again, even the colour of your shirt, the stripes, for example, can affect the webcam. So notice again what you're wearing. What do you want to project? It's your image, your credibility. So have that with you as well. We are getting through our steps to your online presentations. Now the next thing is sound. We want to make sure that we are clearly heard when we're speaking. You might need a good headset. Maybe you have an external mic. But whatever it is, again, and this really should be noticed in the preparation when you're testing all the tech. But you want to make sure we can only hear you and we can hear you clearly. For example, you'd want to say, have a good microphone. It could be the inbuilt one. It could be an external one. That's okay. It doesn't really matter. But choose then a location that's going to be quiet. Now, trying to do a presentation from a coffee shop really isn't going to work because there's too much background noise. All the people talking, the staff, that's just noise. You want a quiet location. Ideally, if there's windows open, close them if you can. Cut out that external noise. Close the door to the room as well. Let people in your household know you're doing a presentation. Then they're not going to come in and start talking to you. Hopefully they won't start vacuuming or drilling or making other external noises as well. You want to keep it as quiet as you can. Now there may be some noises you can't cut out. Baby crying, a dog barking, etc. But try and cut them out as you can. And while we're on the subject of trying to cut out those noises, look at the settings as well. Zoom has settings where you can reduce the tolerance of the microphone. And one of those is maximum. dog barking. If you tick those, Zoom does its best to cut out those noises so you can come across as being in a quiet environment. If there's a dog or a puppy barking, etc. So notice the settings. Again, this comes down to your preparation. You should be checking what's available. Have the latest software installed. Always check for the latest software. Check those settings so that they will cut out the background noise as much as they can. But it's down to you as well to look at the settings, look at the environment you're in to ensure it's quiet and distraction free for your audience as well. That's step 6. Now, step 7. Let's look at the actual presentation. When you're presenting online, we want to look at people. And when I say we look at people, what people often do is they look at the people on the screen. It's the kind of thing we do, right? We're looking at them. We're looking them in the eye. We all know we should make eye contact with people. You know, we're sitting in Starbucks talking to our friends. We look at them, right? Thing we do. But here's the thing. When we're looking at our audience on the screen, we're not looking at our audience. To them, we're looking away. So keep the focus on the webcam. That way you're looking them in the eye. And ultimately, that is where we want to be. So look at the webcam. If you find yourself looking away from the webcam, or maybe you struggle to engage with people when there's a webcam to look at, you can do this. You can put a post-it on with an arrow pointing to it. You can put a little smiley face around it. Maybe have a picture of a loved one by it. Whatever that works for you. But looking at the webcam is where we need to be focused when we're presenting. Doesn't matter when you're in the meeting generally, maybe you're waiting for your turn. That's okay. But actually during the presentation, the webcam is where you want to put your attention. Which is why I gave earlier, as one of the earlier steps, was notes, is to have them in the top third of the screen. Because if they're in the top third of the screen, on say your laptop, then you're still looking at the webcam. You can move your eyes down briefly, look at the notes, move back up again. We really want to keep eye contact with the webcam. So make sure that's the focus. And I know I emphasize this, but it's so important because people break it all the time. And I say break it, it's okay occasionally. We just don't want to be looking down away from people for the whole presentation in the misbelief that we're actually making eye contact when we're just looking at people on the screen as well. Now, during the presentation, we want to really engage and connect with people. And the way we can do that, well, there's various ways, in fact, I give you that we can do that. But we want to make it kind of interactive, right? It's not just me sharing information with you, me telling you. We want engagement in so many different ways. So with an online presentation, we have technology again. We can ask people to comment in the chat box. Say yes if you understand, or do you agree? Do an emoji, do a wire, whatever that works for you. Maybe you could do a poll, ask people to comment, vote what it is they want. No, it could be a little line, it could be just a yes, whatever it is. Get that engagement, get them thinking, get them taking action. Maybe it could just be a rhetorical question, something that gets them thinking. Because here's the thing, when we ask people questions, they answer, even in their mind, don't you? See what I did there? That's what we do. Ask questions. Maybe make a statement. Like, if I were to ask you, straight away people think, are they going to ask me? Have I got to? And they listen. So it's things like that that get people engaged. We really want it to be interactive. Even on a webcam, you can ask people to raise their hand. You can ask people to do a thumbs up. It's things that are getting people active and involved. Rather than a passive listener, they're now an active listener in your presentations. And I do that in formal, more business type situations, as well as more my trainings and things like that. It's so important to have people involved as well. Because I said earlier, people are going to be doing other things when they're online. They might be having to do work while they're listening to you. And if we can get them involved, get them taking part in some way, they feel part of it as well. So do that as much, not as much as you can, but certainly do it every, 5 minutes or so. Ask a question, do something, say something. And it could even be a change of tonality that suddenly pulls people in. These are small things, but they all come together to help you to have a more successful presentation. And then, of course, your audience as well. Step 9 is the movement that you're making, because you're online. People can see you, right? People can see more of you, and you're more obvious on an online meeting, whether you're presenting or not, than you are in a normal meeting. I mean, if it's an in-person meeting and we were sitting in rows, like they call it theatre style, most people, maybe the people either side of you, possibly the speaker, will notice you fidgeting, moving, looking away, looking at your notes. But when it's online, everybody in that meeting can see you. Absolutely everybody. It's the same if you're sitting around a table. Maybe the person opposite you would notice, but that will be it. Online meetings, everyone notices. So be aware of any gestures you're making, any nervous twitches and repetitive gestures that you're making. People will see them. And that happens before you even start your presentation. Let know when you're actually delivering it. Especially on Zoom, what I do if I'm presenting, or indeed one of my mentees is presenting, they call it spotlight. So instead of being that small little box, you magnify them and they're bigger, or I'm bigger, right? And that way people can see you more clearly, especially when you're doing that training. People will notice what you're doing. It could be that you're looking away from the webcam. It could be that you're looking at your notes. It could be you're suddenly picking up your phone and looking at it. If I pick up my phone and look at it, I'm looking down at my phone. People are going to notice. So we want to be aware of that as well. All small things that lead you to have more successful online presentations. And let's look at step 10. Step 10 is something you should always be doing, in my view. It's something that will help you to have success in all the time, anytime you're speaking or presenting. Record and review. I will tell you, you're going to hear me say this so often in all my talks. Record and review. Now, if you're doing it online, it's so simple to record it. Zoom, again, has that option. You could just record it. If it's not your Zoom, your session, somebody else has set it up, they can give you the option to do it. Record every single meeting. And then review it. It's great to record everything, but if you never ever look at it, you're not going to know how well you did. And that's where you can see what went well. How did you think it went? See yourself. Now, I know it is a bit, I suppose I felt a bit embarrassed watching myself the first time. But I guarantee you're going to get so much value from reviewing what you did. The thing is, I can tell you, that when you look at yourself back, and that's this bit cringe-worthy at times, you go, I don't know, do I want to look at myself? When you look at yourself back, you'll usually find you've done a lot better than you thought you did. A whole lot better than you thought you did. So take the time to review it. Right? It's easy just to record things and leave them. But look and see what went well. What went well, you can do it next time. What can you do better? You can alter it for next time. This is where you get the growth. Record and review every presentation. And in fact, I would even say, even if it's an in-person presentation, do the same thing as well. That's where you're going to get that success. Record and review. And in fact, I'm now going to throw in a bonus step as well. A bonus step 11. I know I promised you 10. Here is step 11. Ask other people for feedback. Get feedback on how well you've done, how your message landed from other people who attended. Find supportive colleagues, ask friends, whoever was there. But a good tip would be ask them in advance. Let them know you'd love their feedback. Ask them for specific areas like, did my message land? Did I make it clear? Was my voice clear? Did I use any fillers? Did I make good eye contact? Ask these specific things and then they can actively listen. If you don't and you go to them afterwards, quite frankly, they may not have been paying attention. It happens. You ask them a week later, they may not remember. People have come to me 2 weeks later and asked for feedback and I thought, dang, I don't remember. I'm doing training and presentations all the time. I don't remember every single one to the level that I can give decent, actionable feedback. So ask people in advance, would you mind giving me feedback when we finish? And then that will give you something else to go on. It's by following these steps you are going to have amazing, but definitely successful online presentations. So let me recap what we've covered here in this talk in case you've missed any of it. The first thing we talk about is preparation. Knowing what you want to talk about, having your notes ready, key points only. Online, you can have it in a Word document as an example, or pages, wherever it's for you. Have them in the top third of the screen. That way you can look at those keywords and maintain eye contact via the webcam. Check your slides. Make sure they display correctly. Make sure no parts of the image or the text is going to be obscured when it's online. Have backups just in case they don't display. And again, even if it's an in-person meeting, never be dependent on the slides for your notes. Always know your content. Then we said in our step 2, check the tech before the meeting. Make sure you understand how it works. Make sure it all works as you want it. By knowing that, you're going to feel so much more confident when it comes to the meeting. And then when it does come to the meeting itself, that live event, be online early. Be online. If it's your meeting, great, you can be online, you can check it and make sure everything's running smoothly. If it's not your meeting, arrange with the organiser for you to have access online. They can just start the meeting early. You can share your slides, make sure everything runs smoothly, and even to the other person, displays as you wanted it. Step 3 is to look at the location. Know what's around you. What is there any clutter? Anything that's going to distract people from listening to you. Tidy up if there is something and you can't change your background. Tidy the bookshelf. Make your bed. Whatever that is. Just make sure it's not going to be a distraction for people so they're looking at your background rather than watching you and listening to you as well. Step 4 is to be aware of how you're dressed. It could be a stripy shirt that's going to interfere with the image and start jumping around. Do you need to dress a bit more smarter than you normally would for when you're at home? And be aware of what you're wearing on the bottom half, even if you're dressed in on the top half, if you stand up and move away, because people will see what you are wearing. We then, in step 5, looked at the lighting, didn't we? We want the lighting to be coming from the front so people can clearly see us, not from the back. From the back, it could be a window, for example. That window will then alter the webcam so people just see a silhouette, they don't see you. And also notice the lighting or set up the lighting for as the day changes. It could be a nice sunny day, but it starts getting darker while you're online, so then have the lighting available for you as well. Otherwise the meeting can start with a nice light and lit face, but then as the lighting changes, or maybe it clouds over and starts raining, you get darker. So therefore what we want to do is make sure you're clearly visible. You've got lighting around you. That is what we always want to have. Sound, of course, of step 6. Make sure people can hear you. Microphone, make sure that's clear. Make sure it's working. Again, check. Make sure people can hear you. I've had, again, people joining meetings to give presentations and maybe they're using Bluetooth. It didn't connect. Maybe it's a broken wire. Make sure people can hear you. Choose a location that's quiet. Close the doors, close the windows. Let family and friends know exactly when you're hosting a meeting so they can be quiet. And update the settings. Check the technology you're using. There are tick boxes like on Zoom to keep the noise down. It kind of subdues it in some way. Then we had step 7, look them in the eye. Webcam is where we should be focused the whole time when we're speaking, not at the faces on the screen. So we're looking at the faces on the screen, we're actually looking down and away from people. Try and look at people by looking at the webcam, and that is how you're going to make engagement with people. The step 8 was to engage with people, get them involved, ask questions, get feedback, polls, comments, whatever it is for you. We still ask people to raise their hand, ask for topics, get them involved. Then they're going to be paying attention. They're going to feel this presentation is talking to them. They're going to feel part of it, which is what we want, don't we? Then we had number 9. Step 9 was movement. Be aware of our movement, how we're moving. If we go and walk off when somebody else is talking, people can see us. If we're fidgeting, people can see us. We're constantly on view if our webcam is on. So be aware of that so we can reduce it down. Certainly while we're talking, people will notice it as well. Then step 10, record and review. Record all your meetings on Zoom or whatever software you're using. It's available. The meeting organizer can normally give you permission. Review it. See how well you've done, and also then see what you can do to be even better next time, which is what it's all about. And then, top of my head, I came up with a bonus step 11, which was to get feedback. If we're getting feedback, we can grow. But ask people in advance, could you give me feedback? And be specific. Because you know what? The worst kind of feedback we can get is, yeah, you did a great job. That was amazing. Well done. That's not active feedback. That's not the feedback that's going to help you. We want really specific, tangible steps that is going to help us to grow, to succeed, and to become better speakers and presenters. That is it. They are, well, I said 10, but you've got 11 steps. 11 steps to grow and have successful online meetings. That is what it's all about. That is today's talk. So thank you so much for coming. Thank you for joining us today in this talk. You know, if you want some more support, I can help you anyway. Feel free to join my online events. And it's literally a community. It is a community where we get together twice a week to grow our confidence, to practice our public speaking skills, to get success in the real world. If that's something you're interested in, just simply go to my website, academyofpublicspeakers.com. And there you'll just see a little form. You can just select a day, a time that works for you. Right? Come along. It's totally free to join me on Zoom. Of course it's on Zoom, right? It's academyofpublicspeakers.com. And you can come along, and it'd be lovely to meet you in person as well. Which hopefully, I'd love to meet you all in person. So do come along. Maybe just come along and say hello as well. But you will certainly get to see some amazing people and some great tips to help you get that success as well. Totally free. academyofpublicspeakers.com. Hopefully I'll see you there. If not, maybe in another talk real soon. Anyway, enjoy the rest of the day, and thanks so much for joining.